Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome to Ixion. Well, actually, that's a bit of a difficult question to answer. What is this exactly? Well, what you need to know immediately is that despite appearances, this is not a city builder, nor is it a city sim, nor is it a roguelite or a survival game either, really. It's, well, the closest thing I think I can define this as is a story-focused puzzle game. Yes, no, genuinely, that is probably the closest definition I can arrive at, frankly, as the entire point of the game is to take you from point A to point B over the course of 5 missions as you, well, watch the inevitable demise of your lovely little spaceship here due to, well, idiocy, retardation, stupidity, absolute laughable moronicness. That is, that is exactly what's happening, actually, as the Tycoon here was constructed by the World Economic Forum to be the dumbest space station in human history. It did not come with the stuff to leave the space station. You had to research that. It has a horrible storage, which goes down instead of up in the enormous unused space of its rafters. And it has the single most idiotic solar cell system I think I've ever seen on a spaceship, as the non-rotating structure here guarantees that the vast majority of the solar panels are going to be in darkness, rather than simply having them on a rotating outer platform to make sure that, you could actually make some usage of that solar energy. Or on extending arms or anything other than this, but details. The World Economic Forum has also made sure that your primary way of early food production is sabugs, as it is an insect farm. Of course it is an insect farm. To make matters worse, the Tycoon has not been designed to stand up to the strain placed upon it by the usage of its own engine, causing continuous hull degradation that needs to be repaired ad infinitum. You can never actually repair the hull. You need to constantly pour resources into it, otherwise your station will eventually simply explode. Furthermore, they decided to send you into space with no form of crowd control whatsoever. So when your station's trust in you dips beneath a certain point, that's it, game over, as the civilian populace of the space station throws you, the only person who can run the space station, out an airlock, thereby guaranteeing their own inevitable death by starvation, oxygen deprivation, or eventual collapse of the hull. Your populace are very retarded. I know they might look human, they're not. They are some sort of hyper-advanced breed of lemmings, I believe. Lemmings with extraordinary religious convictions, often equipped with bomb belts, mind you, as well, as they spend most of their day simply walking in silly little circles back and forth on these constructed roadways. If you tell them to move anywhere outside of the roadways, they will simply look at you like deers caught in the headlight and refuse the order. You must put down roads. Otherwise, your little tards will never get anywhere. Not that they actually get anywhere regardless, as whenever they reach a structure, they simply bounce off the wall and go somewhere else, but details. To make matters slightly worse, you may notice that we are not currently in the solar system. This is because the same geniuses that decided to design this space station decided to point it towards the moon, blatantly so, and then fire the hyperspace engines, which, as that last critically acclaimed trilogy of Star Wars movies taught us, is a remarkably bad idea. And so you create the retardapox, where you wipe out all human life by crushing this moon into debris, thereby destroying Earth in the process. I always knew that the World Economic Forum would kill us all, I just didn't know they would do it by destroying the moon. And the best part is, It literally is the World Economic Forum, as the Ixion program was created to, avoid humanity's silliness. It's wars, it's greed, it's destruction of the Earth's ecosystem, which, again, was actually achieved by the ship. I'm not sure whether or not this is brilliant political satire, or simply some really blind idiocy. I genuinely don't know, but the actual game itself is, well, it is about resource management, as of course, you need a continuous stream of alloy to keep repairing the hull. The hull will only ever get more damage as the game progresses because, again, the ship is not designed to stand up to the stress of the firing of its own engine, so you only have so and so many jumps before the ship simply collapses. Additionally, every time you open a new sector, it too begins degrading the hull at a continuous rate. You can never repair the hull again. Now, exactly how opening up like 2 or 3 tiny roadways in this enormous wall causes the drastic hull degradation of the entire spaceship, I don't know, but again, we're moving on from the design thing. It's a game mechanic, okay? Let's just put it as simple as that. It is a game mechanic to force you to move on and to use resources. Additionally, if you spend too long in a system, the game will also start hitting you with a permanent minus to your public relations, your trust. If that ever reaches 0, again, out the airlock you go. Your populace will also object to various things you do on the station. For example, if you ask your populace to recycle their waste and therefore turn useless waste that was otherwise simply destroyed or burned into valuable materials, that will upset your populace, as you are in space. As the last survivors of humanity... Okay, no. I could whine about the various things in this game forever. Moving on. Is the game any good? That's a valuable question to answer to some point, isn't it? Well, again, sadly, I feel like that's a little bit of a complicated question here, because the primary meat of the game is, well, kind of figuring out how the game works, to put it like that. Because you have an extraordinarily limited amount of space aboard the Tycoon. So you need to figure out... that's one of the few positive events there, because I'm feeding my people something other than the boogs at the moment. You need to figure out where to place down all of the various buildings. You need docking bays to bring in resources from space. You need miners to mine it. You need to fire off probes into the great ether to find various resources, like... that's a lot of silicon. I wouldn't mind that. Let's go get the silicon. And then your ships waffle off to actually collect that. That is then unloaded from the space docks into these ridiculously undersized storage bays. You can also upgrade buildings, by the way, which I think I'm going to do right now, as I'm pretty sure there was a storage bay upgrade. Right about there, which will give me a tiny bit more resource space, but it's something, and I need something. I'm also going to set up a waste recycling policy here, and I'm going to set up a overwork policy here. As I am now going to need to do one of the primary things in this game, which is the, well, figuring out how to fit everything into a very tiny area of the video game. As I'm going to start transferring ice over here, which is my agroponics sector. As right now I'm choked up on ice here, and I need to tear down this entire area to try and get another EVA airlock down here, because I'm going to need it, otherwise my hull integrity is simply just going to keep falling, which will eventually kill my ass. I also need to get a waste recyclement center down here, which I can do if I get rid of a couple of insect farms, which is not a problem, because I've set up my agricultural system over here with a nice big crop farm. Once you've figured out the best way to do all of this, the building part of the game is honestly kinda done, frankly. As weird as it say, once all of that is done, you're kind of finished. once you've set everything up, you occasionally need to move stuff around, you need to redesign your sectors, but there's not a whole lot of reason to do anything else. Like, the production chain in the game are, well, they're ridiculously simplistic, honestly. You bring in a raw resource, you put it into one building, and voila, you've got a finished resource. The longest chain in the game at this point is bringing in ice, then melting the ice, then applying the melted ice, water, to the crop farm, which creates crops. And that's about as complex as it gets at this point, which is not very. You do, of course, also have this system here. So as you explore the game and you send out probes to look for resources, you can also look for events like, let's see here, as we're scanning. I keep doing that. I keep wanting to move by clicking, and then I fire the probe, and sadly, it doesn't ask you if you're sure to fire the probes. That was completely goddamn wasted, but oh well. We've got an example over here, Plymouth 37. Our probe has detected the presence of cavities beneath the planet's surface. The readings we are picking up from these chambers are similar to those from strong nuclear reactions, so clearly something is going on there. You then get a multiple choice options to what you want to do. By and large, you always want to go with the cautious one, as anything not cautious will usually end with the death of everyone involved. So we are going to establish infrastructure, and we are going to assign a ship to do so. Over here, we need a technology update before we can do anything, so we're not going to worry about that just yet. Alright, in the meantime, we are going to see how the rebuilding of everything is going. So, I've activated that. I now need to manually transfer the ice over. So I'm going to set that to minimum. I'm going to set this to maximum. There's a bit too much in the way of micromanaging nonsense like this, as you cannot move freely from sector to sector, which really annoys me because you're already transporting resources from sector to sector. Now that I gave that order, there will be little drones which will be fetching ice from here and moving it all the way over here. But you need to do that manually via this, because you cannot fetch ice from this stockpile and deliver it directly to this fusion station. You have to have a stockpile. It's dumb, and it is yet another artificial game mechanic to force you to build multiple stockpiles, spread over multiple sectors, and to engage with the logistics system, which there's no real point in it. It's another way to add gameplay to a game that, again, frankly, once you've reached this point and you've built up your sectors as you want, doesn't really actually have that much gameplay, disturbingly enough. Let's get the, oh god, it didn't show me that, did it? It's just a little bit too tiny, because I'm, okay, well, fine. We can just move the stockpile. I kind of want to, let's just move 2 stockpiles over there immediately. We'll have them take care of waste resources, and we'll break down that stockpile and move it over. Do we have... We have got a little bit of homelessness, so we can put down a population, a crew quarters there as well. Why not? There you go. As right now, I kind of just need to get rid of resources. Right, after having missed that one, let's fire one off in the correct direction this time, as that'll give the gear something to do. Speaking of something to do, we'll have that head back to the Tycoon for now. You can also move the Tycoon itself to facilitate the loading of resources. For example, I could head over here, and I might. That wouldn't be the worst idea ever. If I were to head over right about here, that would take me 2 cycles? Oh, I can't head anywhere I want. Oh, alright. Never mind, I guess I can't. Huh. I was pretty sure you can move it. Ah, you have to move to specific areas only. Well, okay, that's a bit retarded, but very well. If you say so, video game. And the big question then becomes, is the game worth the price? So they're asking for, in my equivalent, about $30. So for you, the original equivalent might be $25-30 roundabout US. And for that, you are going to get a... Oh, Jesus, because this time it didn't show me That was clipping into it. Sweet baby Lord, please have mercy upon my soul. I just want to put down the goddamn recycling center, which is too large for any other spot on the ship. Hey. Alright, well, disassemble that too, as I'm also waiting for all of these to finish emptying themselves, so I can try and put down another EVA yard there. If I've got the storage space for all of the alloy, that is, which I do not. Right. Is there anything else I can waste stuff on? Maybe... Trust is actually full, so I don't really have anything... I would love to put down the EVA airlock, but I can't really fix it, and... Again, this is kind of what you do when you've got your sectors up. You just need to mess around with where to place things, as you really don't want to open up further sectors, because if you do that, you're only increasing the resource drain, frankly. The game is... It's balanced in a weird way, where if you do everything correctly, honestly, the game is pretty easy. But if you do things, even slight things, the wrong way, the game becomes extraordinarily unforgiving exceptionally quickly. And you can very easily enter into a straight-up death spiral. You can even end up kind of soft-locking yourself with resources at certain points during the campaign, which is not great. Alright, has that reached there yet? No, it's still building up the resources. Fine, we've got the gear ready to go to Fargo 39, however. And we've got another probe ready. Let's see. I wouldn't mind more carbon, so let's send you out there. The game is fun, though. Like, I don't mind it. I enjoy playing it, but it's also just like a 15-30 hour max experience, and then you're kind of done. The game has no real replay value because all of the events that you encounter whilst you're going to the various planets, they're the same events every time, so there's no real reason to replay the game after you've done it once. Simultaneously, there really is only one optimal way to play the resource management game either. Like, there's no benefit from not doing the waste treatment center, for example, as it just gives you, well, loads of free resources, so obviously you do that. At the same time, there's no real reason to not just centralize all of your agriculture in one area, because, well, you get bonuses for doing so, and your main problem at that point is just the amount of workers you have, which is just yet another kind of resource restraint that you can't really increase other than by finding cryopods, which are scattered out throughout the various solar systems you will encounter. And in the meantime, you've got to balance stuff like energy and the resource consumption, which will eventually hurry you on to the next system. It feels less like a game, kinda, like a city builder, and more like just a long puzzle quest, in my opinion, which I feel like is a real missed opportunity, because the most fun of the game was building stuff. It was unlocking new sectors, expanding. In this game, well, the game actively discourages you from expanding until you have to, due to the resource constraint mechanics. And you kind of have to take on more people, and you have to unthaw the people too, because if you have too many people in cryostasis, you get massive negatives to your positives. You get massive negatives to happiness, so if you don't unfreeze them, you'll lose the game via trust as well. There are too many artificial pressures placed upon the player that I just don't really like. If you can play the game and just get into it for the story, then that's good, but for me, the negatives in many ways kind of outweigh the positives. Let's see. Requires technology exoskeleton. If this requires me to specifically unlock a technology, I know what the correct answer to that question is. So let's go in here and see if we can't research that using the science ship. Exoskeletons, there we go, yep. 27, research that. We don't have quite enough, but my research station is producing a little bit of passive research, so I will eventually get enough. And in the meantime, I'm just gonna see if... I believe there was one up... There we go, there's a research one up there. And I'm gonna send the gear over there instead. Investigating an event. Oh god, you're locked there now, aren't you? Yeah, that was another thing, wasn't it? It locks it into place. Right, well, we're gonna wait for the exoskeletons then, obviously. Again, the kind of railroading of it all. I feel like the game would play much better if you had more production chains, more stuff you needed, encouraged you to expand, got rid of the dumb expansion malice, made it so you want to expand, give multiple layers to the station, and then give you something like an enemy fleet that's trying to hunt you down and destroy you. Give you a reason to move on eventually, definitely, keep up the pressure, but also don't give you a clear endgame point. Or if you're going to give them a clear endgame point, make it more like a roguelite campaign, for example, where you need to go to various different sectors and encounter various different threats. Maybe one sector has a ton of space weather that just blows you up. That's sector 3, by the way, in this case. Or maybe one is just a dead resource hole, like there's nothing there, and you've just got to get enough resources to refuel the engine and get the hell out of there. Maybe in another case, if you go a certain distance, you might have a very short amount of time to steal whatever you can and then leave. Maybe another place you might have a lucky hole where you can actually get a lot of resources and so on. A little bit of almost the FTL style approach, I think would suit the game much better than this very linear narrative way. Especially as, again, the game is just chock full of artificial difficulty designed solely to force you further down the road. The accident system is another one of those. You probably will have heard multiple, "There's been an accident on the station," again and again. As even if you keep it under optimal conditions, people are going to get hurt constantly in random ass explosions throughout your station without pause and seizure for some goddamn reason. People will always find a reason to get themselves injured. When they get injured, you need a free infirmary slot to bring them back to full health, otherwise they'll just die. And if you ever hit overworked, then your people will start dying in the explosions and the accidents. And when that happens, that's when you're starting to get really screwed, because you only ever have so many people aboard your silly little space station. At the same time, you also need to sink an ass ton of resources into the various solar panels to get them up and going. And you occasionally need to sink into other upgrades, and you need to sink your extraordinarily limited science resource into something else as well. All of this means that there's really only one correct way to play the game. It's not a roguelite experience because there's only one way to get through the game effectively. And if you start deviating from that effective way, you're kinda just gonna cause trouble for yourself, which isn't particularly fun. There we go, and we can do the geological thing as well. Actually, I should have done the resource harvesting first there, because I'm currently researching the exoskeletons, and I want to do that over there. And once you've cleared the game once, because again, there is no random chance thing, well, clearing the game again is essentially just a speedrun, really, at that point, where you just try to see how optimal you can get everything and how quickly you can get from point A to point B, which is, again, just a tremendous abuse of the potential of the game, I feel like. Oh, there, we found it, finally. Especially as, again, the building system is quite fun. I quite like it, you know. And if there were more building chains, so I actually needed to... more accidents. So I needed to actually expand and figure out new building chains and new ways to build things up. That would probably be rather cool. But as it is, I just want to establish a solid base, and then I want to do my thing, and I want to rush through the story as quickly as possible. Which is not great, in my opinion. Especially as, for a $25 to $30 game, only having a single story campaign of 15 to 30 hours is not bad. You know, you'll get your money's worth out of it. You're spending $1 an hour, which is better value than any other form of entertainment, but compared to something like RimWorld, or even just the old Starbase, or Startopia, or Dwarf Fortress, or many other things, you got better value for your money if you want a city building experience. So you've got to be particularly interested in the story, if anything, and Again, I find the story to be actually rather fucking retarded. So, there's the issue. Yeah, and that kind of wraps up everything I want to say about the game, doesn't it? Basically, if you are looking for a city builder, this isn't the game. It really isn't. Which is, again, a shame, because the city building elements are good, it's just that the game actively discourages you from engaging with them. Because it'll just increase the hull bleed, which will just decrease the amount of time you can play the game. Like, literally, if you fully engage with the city building mechanic, you will play the game for less time than if you didn't. Which is... which is genuinely rather retarded, in my opinion. And the story is... it's got some cool mystery elements to it, I like that, but it's too arbitrary. And the mechanics feel like, it feels like every mechanic is a negative mechanic. And if you don't know how to play the game to begin with, and you just enter into that negativity spiral, the game, it can feel incredibly frustrating. It can get really stupendously frustrating really quickly, which is not enormously fun, in my opinion. Like, just being angry at the game because of blatantly random mechanics, like every time there's just explosions on the ship. Like, how dangerous is all of this shit? Like, do I have zero security procedures? Can I research security procedures? Apparently not. And the hull constantly leaking as well. Like, it feels bad. And it is actually genuinely rather demoralizing, frankly, from a player perspective. And I get also that they're trying to, like, instill a sense of, like desperation in the player. They want you to be like, oh my god, what, oh my Jesus, what's happening? Everything's falling apart, everything's exploding, how do I survive? I get it. I just don't find it particularly intriguing. Simple as. I think it might be more fun for certain people. Like, again, if you are looking for an expressly story-focused experience, and the city building, if anything, comes as a bit of a, side grade thing to you, then great. But otherwise, it is difficult for me to recommend this game. Let's wrap it up like that, shall we? There are many games that do the city building better and will give you better value for money over a longer period of time than this game will. And the only really thing that the Ixion has to offer is its aesthetic and its story. So if you're not expressly into that, you're probably not going to have as good a time here as you would have liked, which is, again, unfortunate. I really hope they maybe do some DLC or an expansion with a good endless mode or different campaigns. I might be interested in playing a different campaign, but I feel like it would just be, well, a different puzzle to solve rather than really a major expansion. A endless mode would be great. A more FTLE, more roguelite style approach would probably drag me back into the game, but as it stands right now, after finishing the story once, I feel like I want to keep playing the game, but at the same time, I feel like I have no reason or incentive to do so. Which is, the issue. I am really genuinely quite conflicted on this game, because it kind of feels like the Curse of the Starbase game, where it looks cool, it seems kind of cool, it feels kind of cool to play, but there's just not enough there to justify the investment, And that is pretty much my opinion on Ixion right there. I feel like I'm walking myself in a bit of circles, so I'll wrap it up. It's interesting, but it needs more stuff before I can wholeheartedly recommend it. So until next time, I've been Arch. Thank you all very much for watching, and I hope to see you all again soon. Till then, have a good day.